everybody. On today's podcast, we're going to be hearing from Chief of Police Todd Frederick, who is going to be answering questions submitted by you. Questions range from city ordinances to rules and regulations in town, all the way to hearing about Todd's favorite walk-up song and donut. You won't want to miss it.
Welcome to the Princeton Podcast, your go-to source for everything happening in and around Princeton. Join your hosts, Zach, Mary, and Kim, three locals who live and work right here in Princeton, as we bring you the latest events, exclusive interviews with local businesses, and stories that make our town special. Your community, your stories, your podcast.
Hi, Todd.
Good morning.
We are so excited to have you back on today. So today's podcast with the chief is going to be just full of questions that we've gathered from the community. So are you ready?
I am ready. I'm hopefully prepared.
Yeah.
Well, I thought the public did a great job.
Yeah,
I mean, their questions were all really good and really valid, and I'm interested in these responses as well.
All right, well, let's get started. I can ask the first question. So here we go. What is a legal description of an outdoor recreational fire? How far from the building size, etc.?
So, in regards to the city of Princeton, we have an ordinance relating to fires, and so it needs to be no bigger than 36 inches in regards to a campfire. So, what we tell people is that if you're like roasting marshmallows or roasting hot dogs and stuff, that's legal. If you're burning leaves or tree branches or debris, that's not legal. We actually have a compost site. A compost site over by the industrial park that the city allows people that are living in the city of Princeton to bring all their leaves and tree branches and debris. As long as you live in the city, you're allowed to go over there, and they have it open during certain times throughout the day. So you can go on the city's website to look for that type of disposal of those type of stuff. But if you're having like a recreational campfire, perfectly legal. Can't be bigger than 36 inches, and there needs to be some sort of a ring, like a campfire, like you can see those decorative rings you can buy at different stores. In relation to like close to houses and buildings, there's nothing in there. I would just say common sense.
Use your brain.
We would like you to stay away from structures.
Yeah.
And then obviously the biggest piece is they're attended, right? We get a lot of calls for unattended fires, and obviously that's illegal. We want somebody out there to make sure that there isn't any problems, whether it's a fire getting out of control or, I mean, you hear about these horror stories of medicals of kids falling in the fire, little kids and stuff like that. So obviously the parenting piece is huge, and then obviously we just want them to be recreational fires. We want people sitting in lawn chairs around the fire roasting marshmallows. That's awesome. That's what we want. We would prefer that all of the leaf blowing or leaf burning and tree branch burning all goes to our compost site.
Do you get a lot of that in town where people are burning garbage?
Yeah, especially right now. Everybody's in yard cleanup,
Yeah.
and so I know the city's been doing a phenomenal job of trying to advertise, that we actually have a place for you to go.
Right.
So again, if you have any of those situations, for sure reach out to our city hall or look at our website, and it'll tell you the hours that the place is open.
Okay.
So it's not just right now. It is all the time. You cannot burn unless it's just a recreational fire.
Yes,
in the
correct.
City. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, this one is probably been an issue with people, especially in this area, for a number of years. Because I know my grandma used to live on this street, and she probably called it the Village, as she always called it several times. So 13th Avenue North. The question is, how do we prevent excessive speed on this street?
Well, I think the first thing starts with making sure we're aware of it. I think that, like if and we get quite a number of people that call and, will make complaints about, traffic speeds. And, there are things that we do, right, to slow that traffic down, whether it's an actual officer sitting there running radar, or, we have a wonderful speed trailer that we can record data. It actually takes pictures of cars.
It does. I've always wondered that.
So, if you get a ticket in the mail, it took your picture. And so, there are things that we can do to slow that traffic down. Now, obviously, we need to know about it, right? But then, like, some of the questions that I ask all the time are when people call and want to, get extra, patrolling or traffic is, when is it occurring? Is there, are there specific vehicles that you're seeing every time? You know, can you get us a license plate? Are they going north, south, east, west, and then maybe like even to the point like how fast are they going? I think that's one of the biggest problems we'll have. You know, we'll have complaints come in of, you know, oh my goodness, vehicles are traveling 50, 60 miles an hour, and I'll bring the speed trailer out there and I'll collect data, and vehicles always look faster than they're going, right?
Well, especially in a 30 mile an hour, if they're going 40,
Yeah.
it looks real fast.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So it's allowing us, you know, that the trailer is nice because it allows us to get specific data, like to figure out, okay, when is the traffic, when is the highest volume traffic, you know, is it speeding, is it not speeding, stuff like that. So a lot of it is just knowing about it.
Yep.
13th Avenue has been on our list for years.
Yep.
We're out there all the time. You know, and again, I tell people, you got to remember, you know, just because, you know, we're not sitting there 24/7. You know, we have a lot of other things going on in town and a lot of other spots that have to be patrolled. So
Yeah.
we do our best to try to get squads out there, officers out there to try to slow people down, and whether they're getting verbal warnings or citations, you
Yep.
know, is what we do to try to, you know, maybe curb some of that speeding. So
Okay. All right.
Okay, so here, this is kind of the same area. This is a little bit of a loaded question, but it mostly pertains to parking during the fair.
Your
So
mic
he-
isn't on, I don't think. Switch it up. There, that was the problem.
Okay. Hopefully everybody was able to hear me
Yeah.
earlier.
Yep.
Anyway, so this is about parking during the fair. And I think like 12th Avenue, 4th Street, 3rd Street, all along there, it just gets super congested. And we have people that are concerned about people parking on both sides of the street where you couldn't even get an emergency vehicle. So they are wondering, or this person is wondering if we could do like a one side only or how that would work.
So there, you know, given that area, there are streets we have no parking on one side. Not all those streets that you had mentioned. You know, over the course of, I don't know, a number of years, we've always gone out there and measured, you know, and we've tried to make sure, because obviously that's the biggest important piece, is making sure we can get emergency traffic down that road. The concern that we always have is if you have traffic parking on both sides, can you get 2 lanes of traffic still through? So that's kind of our gauge as far as whether we're trying to decide whether it's no parking or should we put up temporary no parking. So it's kind of one of those things where we kind of address it every year, and we try to decide if this is something that we need to. I mean, I would tell you we get the occasional complaint, but we don't get a lot of complaints of parking. I think probably the biggest one that I can think of is we'll get a lot of like they parked in front of my driveway.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
Yeah.
stuff like that, you know, where, you know, we have to track down somebody. Because
Yeah.
obviously, you know, there's not, I would say there's nothing worse than towing a vehicle and then the people come out from a day at the fair
Yeah.
and their car's gone, you know. So, we
But at
put
the
a-
same time,
Don't
like,
park in somebody's driveway.
well, just pay attention to your
Yeah.
surroundings,
Yep.
right? You know, that's happened a couple times, and you know, thankfully we've been able to find the people, you know, or the fair has been able to make announcements and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
but as far as this traffic congestion, I mean, obviously, it's the fair. We're going to have tons of, you know, congestion, and so, you know, every year we'll sit down before the fair starts and say, okay, is there anything we want to change or adjust before we do that? So we're always addressing that piece of whether we need no parking on both sides or one side. I mean, you guys see it like that 8th Avenue that leads over to the high school, right? We have
Yeah.
no parking on the one side because that road width is a lot smaller. So once you get parking on both sides, you only can get one way down, and
Right.
it backs it up. So that's kind of what we look for is
Okay.
how we can get people through.
And have a little patience, right?
Right.
Patience and common sense
Yeah.
and understand your surroundings,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
All right.
Okay, next question. What, if anything, can be done about the junky appearance of various yards throughout the city, including non-running vehicles and just plain piles of junk in yards that have been present for days, weeks, etc.? Also, free items sitting out for days that obviously nobody wants. Is there a time limit? I mean, you do see that, like a couch that's been out in the rain for a week.
Like a month.
Yeah,
It's like
no one's gonna take that couch.
pretty gross by now.
I would say who would take the couch.
Yeah, right.
So great question. We get this a lot, right? So, you know, so every year during this time, we'll go out and we grid the city, we call it, and we look for, you know, the police department looks for, you know, junk violations type stuff. And then we'll start with that door hanger, right? We'll put the door
Okay.
hanger on, and we're ultimately looking for that cooperation from the homeowner. And I would say, probably 90% of the time, the problem is fixed pretty quick. We have the occasional one where it may turn into a citation or whatever, those kind of things. So we obviously don't see everything. So I would
Right.
say we average, anywhere from 40 to 60 of those a year, where we're just reminding people that, hey, we
Wow.
should probably get this taken care of.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, believe it or not, when we started this like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and we were over 100. So I
Wow.
feel like it's working.
Yeah.
And not necessarily where I would say it's like it's a problem. I think it just needs, people just need to have that reminder. Like, hey,
Yeah.
let's, here's my thing. We want our city to look clean
Right.
and nice. And I would prefer, and I've told this to people many of times, is like, I would always hope that neighbors would talk to neighbors and try to mediate stuff prior to maybe getting us or the city involved, because that would be ideal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So how you go about this, if there's something that you think is a junk violation, you can either call the police department and, we're going to take your name down and we're going to get the information and figure out where it's at, let you know whether it is falling within our junk ordinance, or two, you can call City Hall and they have a letter that will go out as well. So we kind of work together.
Okay.
I would say on complaints that come in, we try to always start with the citywide first, meaning the city will look at it or get our opinion of whether we think it's an ordinance violation or junk, and then they'll send a letter out giving you, so much time to get it cleaned up.
Okay.
That's, in my opinion, ideally the route to go, just because, if you think about this, charging somebody for a junk violation, whether it's a misdemeanor or a petty misdemeanor, ties up the court systems, and I just, we just want people to be cooperative, right?
Right.
And obviously, here's the other thing, is that everybody's perception of clean is
Yep.
different. Now, I'm probably the wrong guy to go out to a junk ordinance violation, because I am fairly detailed in regards to what a property should look like. So that's the other problem we have, is that, we talk to people a lot. They're like, oh, I thought this was pretty good. Well, maybe we need to just adjust this or do this. So there's always that perception.
So what about like this person mentioned that like there's a couch sitting out there that obviously no one's getting. Eventually, could you, rather than do a citation that goes to the courts, can you just say, here's we're going to take this away for a high amount
Well,
of, you don't want it to be like, well, that's fine. I'll pay $25 to have you take my couch away.
Well, so that's kind of part of the problem, right? Is like there is no statute relating to, oh, here I can put my free stuff by the curb and I can only have it out there for so many days. So there's that. There's kind of a gray area. Like we have to okay, so like let's use, for example, somebody puts a couch out there and the couch has been out there for 2 weeks,
Yep.
right? And we get a call. So we would probably normally in that situation have the city send a letter to that homeowner saying, hey, this couch has been out there for a couple weeks. We need you to take care of it. In regards to your question about like we'll just haul it away, we would have to go through the courts for that.
You would, okay.
So I would encourage people to not let that happen,
Yeah.
because remember, you're going to get now court fees, and there's a lot more fees and a lot more expense to that if you just call somebody and haul it away.
Have it hauled
right?
away,
There's a number of companies
Yep.
that advertise in town. The city
There's
actually has
cleanup day.
Ton, yeah.
And that's the other thing too. There are cleanup days.
Yep.
So like prepare for that, right? So,
Right.
So is there a limit to how long I can leave my, hey, it's free? No, it just at some point will turn into, we'll label it as junk.
Okay.
So
All right.
the
Good
car
to know.
the car question is simply this: everybody's car, whether it's on a road or on your property, has to be registered. It has to have current tabs, and this is the easiest way that I've explained it to people. If I were to show up and ask you to drive that car, would it be street worthy? Meaning, are the tires inflated? Does the car start? Is it missing an engine? That's how we negotiate between a junk vehicle and not a junk vehicle. So that's how we tell people that. So like if you have a car that is tucked around the back of your house with a tarp on it and it hasn't run for 5 years and the tires are flat, and I show up and say, start that car right now and drive it around town and show me that it runs, and you can't do that, then we would consider that to be junk.
Okay.
And then
So
they have to
that's-
get rid of it?
Well,
They have to deal
they would
with
have
it.
to make it street worthy,
Okay.
right?
Or could they have that like in a garage?
Out of mind, out of sight, right? That's always the best, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ideally.
Interesting, I did not know that.
So I mean, that's trying to keep it super simple with
Yeah.
that junk car ordinance. It's like, you know, I mean, we have properties where people have maybe antique type collector cars, or we had one just the other day where the super nice homeowners, their I think it's their daughter is going to drive in a year, so that's the car they're getting ready. So like my explanation to them was just like, you know, you're just going to have to start it. You know, make sure it's runnable, make sure it has tabs on it, make sure that it looks presentable and doesn't turn into 5 years down the road the car hasn't moved, right?
Right.
Those are the things that, and those aren't. I mean, I don't remember the last time that we've had to, you know, issue a citation for those kind of things. We've had good cooperation with people. You know, we have had to cite people or charge people for junk violations, but I'd like to say that it works out pretty well if we can just have good conversations with people.
Right. Okay.
All right, next one is, many times I see a four-wheeler, dirt bike, et cetera, traveling along the streets here in town. What is the description of a vehicle that is street legal?
I'm interested in this too
Me
because
too. You
lately
never know.
I've seen tons of
Well, side-by-sides, like the
Side-by-
bigger side-by-sides that are like,
side-by-sides.
some of them are bigger than a car.
so many side by sides lately.
So this is this is a hot topic, right? So our ordinance allows for, because I truly do believe that our council and our community still, you know, we're not metro, right?
Right.
We're still holding on to that not metro, and so you have a lot of people that, you know, go four-wheeling. So here's how we've focused with this ordinance is we've told people as long as you're taking the most direct route. So if let's say you're driving a four-wheeler and you plan on going out riding trails, you know, obviously there are different rules and regulations to, you know, highway ditch driving and stuff like that. But if you're in the city of Princeton and you're obeying the laws, right? You're stopping for the stop signs. You're not speeding. You're, you know, appropriately using your turn signals and so forth. Like, you know, with a four-wheeler, there's not really, I mean, my four-wheeler has turn signals on it, but if you don't, you're still using your arm, you know, your arm motions to turn
Like
left
bike.
and turn right.
Yeah.
And so if you're taking the most direct route from your house to a trail, we're fine. Like
Okay.
we're like because we recognize that this is an important value to the community of Princeton, right? There's a lot of people that love doing that kind of stuff. So as long as you're using good judgment and obeying the laws and stuff like that, we're fine, right?
Does it have to like be able to go a certain speed?
You mean like well, you still obey the speed limit in
Right, but I'm
town.
saying like slow. Like I'm thinking like maybe a golf cart.
Oh.
I mean, you would want like a golf cart isn't going to go as fast as a side by side. So
So the golf cart rule is simply this, because of course we have that problem, right?
Yep.
We have people that have their golf carts that they park at their house.
Yep.
And they have a membership to the golf course.
Yeah.
And so, again, we're kind of in the same belief of most direct route,
Okay.
safest route. Now, on a golf cart, people need to realize if it's not capable of doing the speed limit, which a golf cart maybe would be, you need to have that slow moving,
Like the tractor?
the triangle
Yeah,
thing,
okay.
right? You need to have that on there.
Okay.
To the back, so that way, and then obviously, you know, we've told people like if your golf cart doesn't have headlights or doesn't have any, like, then you're not driving this at night.
Yeah,
Like those
for
are
sure.
you know, proper things.
Yep.
The side by sides, you know, like if you look at now when you're purchasing side by sides, you know, you have the capabilities of buying street package, right? Where they
Oh.
have turn signals, they have seat belts, they have all that. So when we talk about roadworthy, we would you know, headlights, turn signals, horn, all those things
Yeah.
now come with these side by sides. Really, the biggest, I would say, the biggest concern for us is, and I know the state too, is like if you see some of these side by sides that are street worthy, what probably is not street worthy are the tires. And so, how I've been explained to this, because I'm not a side by side guy,
Yeah.
is if you are using like the tires that are meant for off-road, like the real knobby type of tires, the state feels that that's an unsafe, because when you're on pavement, they may grip and roll the side by
Yeah.
side over. So there, from my understanding, I've been told that there are different types of tires you can have, whether it's pavement versus off-road. Now, like, I would ask how that's a real hard enforceable thing. Like,
That is.
Like, I would never know what's a street tire versus a road
Right.
tire. So I do have officers that do know the difference, and I know for a fact that there are troopers that know the difference. You know, if you think about this, I believe there was a fatal that was over in Benton County maybe a couple years ago, where I do believe one of the causes of that was because they were on pavement
Yeah.
with off-road tires, and it gripped and it rolled the four-wheeler.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that, I mean, the bottom line with these things is obviously we want them to be street worthy, right? We want them to have the headlights and the turn signals, and if you don't, then you need to use the proper hand signals to be able to know that you're turning left and right, and obviously you're obeying the laws and you're not drawing attention to yourself.
Right.
Like, we have a couple situations in town where, hey, I'm going to take my four-wheeler out and I'm going to race up and down the street to,
Right.
like, that's not legal.
Right.
Like, we're going to cite you for that.
Yeah.
If you're going from one place to the next and you're leaving town, great. You know,
Common sense again.
Common sense again, right? And then obviously there's always the hot-bedded topic of, you know, we have people that ride four-wheelers on their property and only stay on their property, and you know, they race around, and I would tell you that becomes a noise ordinance violation,
Yeah.
just because the neighbors get tired of that, right? So if you're wanting to ride four-wheelers on property and maybe the city is not quite the place for you, and maybe you need to find a friend that has some land that you can go do that. So again, we keep going back to it. We're just looking for a lot of common sense,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, we hear, this is kind of an interesting question. Somebody asked, we hear the tornado siren when there is a threat. Why is there not an all clear signal? And I would think that this came up because of the recent bad weather we had a couple Mondays ago, where there was a funnel cloud sighted, and then so the tornado sirens went off, and then it was like, is this still happening? You know, so I'm guessing that's maybe why this came up.
Yeah, so I mean, to give you just a real brief overview, right? You know, there's a criteria to turn the sirens on now. I think what people have to realize is that we're in two different counties. So the criteria for Sherburne County and Mille Lacs County are the same, but it depends on what type of alerts are within that county. So there's
Right.
a lot of, for us, a lot of common sense, right? Like,
Yep.
you know, if let's say the Sherburne County sirens are going off because of something that was spotted in Zimmerman, right? Mille Lacs County and then emergency management here in the city of Princeton are paying close attention, because the question then needs to be, are we activating the city, right? Or are we activating Mille Lacs? So there's always this, these question and answers that have to be done quickly, right? The question about why we don't have an all clear is because it's simply this: we don't want to confuse people.
Yep.
Like, if you hear the sirens, there's a problem.
Yep.
When they go off, it's not a problem.
Yep.
And that's the easiest way that the National Weather Service has presented this. You know, I don't know if there are states or cities that do an all clear. I don't think so, but I would say we would never do that here, just because of the fact that we want it to be, we want people to hear it and know, okay, this isn't, I mean, we have our test days, right?
But they always know that there's a
Always-
danger or whatever, yeah.
Right, and we don't want to confuse people with, like, oh, it's a different siren or a different tone to make it all clear. I think that just creates confusion.
Well, I won't name the community, but I did live in a different nearby community for a few years, and their system was, the sirens for the tornadoes were the same as calling fire department
Oh,
in.
yep.
So the sirens would go off if there was a fire, and they were calling in firemen, volunteer firefighters. So they'd put the tornado siren would go off to call the firefighters. I think it was like a versus I mean, it was very close. We had just moved there. I had no clue that this was happening, and the tornado sirens went off. It was like 75 and sunny, and I'm like, everybody
Get to cover.
like, why are the tornado sirens going off? So that is valid.
Yeah.
So if you did like an all clear, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, and like, and we've just gone through a fairly good or
Is that your phone?
significant.
It sounds like a siren right there.
Yeah, it does.
That's just the, yeah. And we have different, we just did some upgrades and replacement on some of our city sirens. And so, that test piece too is always going to be at that certain time, right? So people just know, 1 o'clock, I think it's 1 o'clock, right?
Yeah, I think it is.
And so, if it falls outside of that 1 o'clock, we want people to realize that, this is legitimate.
Right. Yep.
And so,
Yep.
All right, last question for just the general city type questions before we get into more job specific. What should we do if we find a lost or stray dog, which I feel like is happening more and more?
Back to my grandma. That happens so many times.
Yes.
well, I think the easiest thing to do, well, obviously we want you to call us, right? Because,
So calling you is like the non-emergency or call the city?
Call dispatch.
Call dispatch,
Non-emergency.
okay.
Right? So we have a contract with Animal Control that
Okay.
covers all Mille Lacs County. So a couple things that we try to do prior to calling Animal Control is because, the Animal Control piece, they'll come down, they'll impound the dog, right? And then what we hope for is that within hopefully a quick couple hours or a day, someone calls and says, I'm missing my dog. And then you're going to have to go get your dog out of jail, right?
You're right.
Cooper.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, so we've always told people, were you able to secure the dog, right? We've had people where the dog has been running around and they open the gate and the dog runs in the backyard, and that's perfect, right? Because obviously, ultimately, we don't. I think always the concern is we don't want a dog to get hit by a car,
Right.
stuff like that, right? It's a family pet that just everybody, that's a tough time, right?
Yep.
And so, so we're going to ask that question, and then obviously, and this is something that we constantly deal with. If you're, your dog should have a collar.
Yep.
Now I know there are situations like my dog has done it where they back out of the collar,
Yep.
or whatever, right? Or they somehow get the collar off. With the collar, everybody has those, the tags that have the dog's name and the phone number and all that. Here's the other thing that helps us out. If they're registered with the city, we can track and call you guys and say, hey, guess what? We got your dog.
Right.
Come and get it because here's the thing, to get your dog out of doggy jail is going to cost money. Our animal control for the
Bail.
county, they have, it's a job, it's
Yep.
a company. And so there's going to be a fee that you're going to have to do to get your dog out, plus you're driving north of Malacca to pick up your dog.
Where do you register your dog?
Yeah, I was just going to
So-
back up to that. I didn't know that
So
was
yeah,
such a thing.
if you live in the city of Princeton, and you have a dog, you can go to City Hall, and we actually will give you a tag that has a number on it, and then we have a list at the police department of everybody who's got a tag. And
Everybody do this.
and it's
great.
I believe, but I think it's like $5. I think we
It's
charge
reasonable.
$5. Yeah, and basically, it allows for us to find owners.
Yeah,
right.
that's a great idea.
And that's and two, it's hoping that the dog will allow us to come up to it and look at the tag, right? Or we can catch the dog. Too.
Yeah,
that's the
the
other
thing.
problem too. But having those capabilities of calling the homeowner, and the homeowner says, "Oh, I'm an hour and a half away from work. We'll say, well, is there a neighbor that can come and get your dog? Or, to be honest with you, there's been times where we've brought the dog home and then locked the gate.
Put it back in the fence.
Or whatever, Some of these dogs are magicians when it comes to getting out.
It's so
right?
true.
And so the license piece is, it's not a money-making thing. It's literally, it'll save time and money for the dog owner to not have their dog impounded.
Yeah, for sure. That's
And then
a great
obviously
idea.
we have an ordinance, right?
Yep.
So if this becomes a problem, we have a dog running at large ordinance that, we've had to cite now a number of people that seem to not
It's funny.
maybe
Dog
care
running
about
at
it,
large.
right? So that's what it's labeled as, right? So,
Oh my God.
Well, this is probably a good place for a break.
Yep.
A quick break and for a commercial from our sponsor today is the City of Princeton. So we will take a quick break and be right back.
All right.
Looking for your next outdoor escape? The city of Princeton has 7 amazing parks. From peaceful nature trails and riverside campsites to splash parks, pickleball courts, and disc golf. Whether you're hiking at Pioneer Park, skating at Civic Center, or cooling off at Mark Park, there's something for everyone all year long. So pack a lunch, bring the kids, and plan your perfect park day in Princeton.
All right, we're back.
All right, I will start off on these job-specific questions. This first one is a really great one. What mental health resources are available to officers, and how do you encourage their use?
So something that's changed over the course of the last couple of years is that's a hot topic, right? How do we allow for officers to be able to talk to somebody other than maybe a coworker, right? So we have protocol, in place at the police department where we have a counseling service that we contract with for the police department, and so my officers can go there whenever they want. I actually budget for it, so it's something that is free for them, and so there doesn't necessarily need to be an incident for them to go.
Right.
They just, and that's something that we've wanted to do from the start. We don't want to have to do this as a result of something. We just want, if there's something going on, whether it's at work, home life, whatever, we want to give them the opportunity to be able to go and talk to somebody other than their boss, their supervisor, their coworker, right? So we have that set up in place. We also have protocol in regards to incidences.
Right.
We have debriefing for everybody where it's like a team setting, but we also have individual debriefing. So every event that comes in, we're making contact. Administration is making contact with officers, making sure they're good, but and then reminding them, hey, that you have this service available to you. So this is something that's it's been going on for a while. I would say for my department, we're probably now year 3 into it, and it's been good for us. We have. I think when we started it, it was like, I think there was a leeriness to, I'm not going to go talk about it.
Right, exactly.
Why would I talk about my feelings, right? We are type A cop person, and so that it's been a work in progress to build trust with the department to be able to say, hey, for me, I don't know who they are when this is all them.
Yep.
I just pay the bill.
Yep.
Right. I don't, and I at the company that we use, I don't want to know. They just give me a bill and I take care of it. So, and that gets it's being used, and so that makes me feel good because it's just another box that we can check to make sure that right we're getting home at the end of the day.
Yep.
We're taking care of our coworkers in our community, but also taking care of our family. There's, I want to say back, I'm dating myself, but when I was going to school and when I first started to become a police officer, it was like, you need to just turn it on and turn it off.
Yeah.
And it just, that doesn't work.
No.
Right. And we talk with, new officers about, having appropriate conversations and being able to make sure that they talk to their significant others, because there are times that maybe the officer's not ready to talk about it with their significant other. And I'm not talking about details. I'm just talking about, hey, I had a rough day.
Right.
Give me a little bit, right? And it's getting them to understand that, it's okay to whether it's talking to us, open door policy, or whether it's talking to their significant other, their spouse, whomever, right?
Yep.
Whoever works, right? Or literally going to the contracted company we have. And the company that we use is phenomenal. They have a number, there's a wide variety of counselors that they can go to, and some have public safety backgrounds, some have no public safety backgrounds, and they get to pick and choose.
Yep.
And they're developing rapport with them to create a relationship. So
everybody could, it's not going to harm anybody to go see somebody about anything.
Everybody has critical stress jobs.
That's right.
And you just got to figure out how to handle them. Right.
Yeah, and I think too, there's a difference between being trained for situation and actually being in the situation. I know, like, I have a friend who worked at a bank for many, many years. That's, primarily what she did. And she was robbed at gunpoint. She was not hurt. She was not, nothing. They handed it over. He left. She could not go back. She never went back because it just traumatized her to have a gun pointed at her. So it's just being trained for it and being in it are two very different things.
And sometimes there's a delay, like,
Right.
We may go to an event or an incident. I refer to, like a call, but I always use the word event. We'll go to an incident or an event, and that officer might say, I'm good, right? And then a week later, and it's important for whether it's a police job or whether it's any job, right?
Yep.
It's important for you to monitor your coworkers because, like, I want my other officers that are maybe partners to those officers to be able to say, like, identify, right?
Yep.
Like, something's up here. We really need to have a conversation, and that's what we need to do. Like, we can't just keep it bottled up and say, it'll be fine, I'll be fine. Like, that's not acceptable anymore.
It's going to come out in a different way, for sure. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. All right. So what kind of ongoing education or evaluation is required of officers once they're on the force?
So obviously, we have Minnesota Post Board, right? So that's our governing body in regards to our license. So I will tell you that Minnesota is probably one of the top states in regards to all the education that we have to, that continuing education.
Awesome.
So basically, we have so many credits that we have to have. I would tell you that with our police department, we don't shy away from training, and we're always looking for new things to do. We do a lot of in-house. Like, I have a lot of trainers that are actually department members. We save money, but we can use money in a different situation or a different expenditure because I have officers that are the trainers. And so it works well. Like, I don't have to go pay for a class.
That's nice.
Right? I don't have to. I mean, it's become so expensive to, if you think about it, you send, we have new SRO training, new school resource officer training that has to be done this summer that the state, has passed. And, that's a 3-4 day class. And if you don't find that class that's drivable, now I'm paying for meals, hotel, travel, all that. So it offsets it a little bit by me having trainers within my department, but it also, we're always looking for the next training piece, right? And so, when we're turning our post credits in, we're always above and beyond what the requirement is because I think that just makes for a better cop.
Yep, that's excellent.
So for the SRO, does every officer have to go through that, or just the ones that are going to be in the schools?
So the new law states that if there's not a potential, if you're in the school as an SRO, you'll have to go to the training.
Okay, so not every single officer has to.
No.
Okay.
So like for us, our department, we'll have 2 that'll be trained, that'll go into the school. But myself and the sergeant have talked. Even if there's a potential for another officer to go in to fill a spot for whatever reason, we're gonna look at that for the year after and try to get a couple more people because I think it's important. I mean, getting trained in an SRO is not necessarily bad for your entire department. It's just trying to figure out, and I'll be honest with you, it's trying to figure out how to pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to get into politics today, but they want to take money away from our education, but they don't want to take away all the requirements. And so
That's right.
We're us small departments, right, are looking for we're raising our hand going, well, what do we do? Like, how are we going to pay for this? And and we use small departments, but I mean, can you think of like a large department that gets their budget reduced 25% or 30% by the state? That's a huge piece, right? And then you're in the struggle of what do I cut to put that back in the right account, and then it puts stress on the city council to figure out there's that chain reaction, and so.
Because you don't want to cut anything.
You shouldn't. I mean, us chiefs and sheriffs are in a little bit of a battle right now with the state in regards to this reduced funding because we've never not once said that the training isn't needed.
Right.
We love the training. We want the training, and
the public, would like you to have the training.
Yeah, right?
You know what I mean?
And so all these mandates keep coming down in regards to different types of classes and training we have, but then all of a sudden, oh, but by the way, we're taking funding away.
Right.
Yep.
And
But
we're all
still
sitting,
do it.
We're all sitting here going, okay, well, how are we going to pay for this? So, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
we're working through the problem right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Kim, you're up.
Okay. What does your department, how does your department partner with social services, schools, nonprofits, local businesses, et cetera?
Well, I mean, right, that's a day by day thing, right? We're always building relationships. I would tell you, pulling the school out right now, we have a phenomenal relationship with the school. Our teachers, our staff, our administration get along really well. We're always constantly working together, and I think that part of the reason why it goes so well is we have school resource officers in the schools.
Right.
There's communication that's been set up. So the school thing is just it's a great relationship we have. I would never change anything about it. Family services and all that, we're working with them on a daily basis, right? And so it's one advantage we have, I would say, here is that we're still kind of that small town. So we know everybody, we know faces, right? We know, we know all the social workers, and the social workers know all the officers, and that creates for better communication. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a daily thing. Obviously, businesses, right? Working with you guys,
Yep.
putting on lectures, putting on presentations. We're doing right now tons of frauds and scams presentations right now that are going on all over the place. And the more places we get into, and the more people we meet, the better we are in regards to recognizing people or knowing first names, or them at least knowing how to get a hold of us, right?
Yep.
And so whether it's a fraud and scams presentation, or whether we're doing like security check presentations, like we've gotten to different businesses within town and talk about proper IDing of people, or how do we lock up, or hey, I have 4 high school kids that are closing the store. Can they call the police if they don't feel comfortable going to the car? Absolutely,
Yep.
right? We are still a small town, and we
Yep.
still will come provide that service. So that's an ongoing thing. We're always building relationships with the community.
And that might be something people don't understand, that even with like the Rum River Festival, we work very closely with your department
Yeah.
to make sure it's safe, and what are the right ways to do things. You and I fight on a daily basis about.
Well, right? It's always like you talk about our Rum River Festival, right? That's a big thing for our community.
Yeah.
I truly don't believe people know how much work like that you do, and a lot of people do to make this happen.
Right.
There's a lot of behind the scenes, right?
So
There's a lot of
much.
people. I mean, what are we on? I feel like we're on like our 30th
I
meeting,
know,
right?
I agreed.
Trying to dot our I's and cross our T's, and making sure. And here's the thing, we got the big duck coming, right?
Yep.
So, I tell people all the time, that was the first experience I ever had with the big duck last year, and I mean, it was mind blowing how many
And it
people
was
were here.
such a learning experience.
Yeah, and it's going to be better and greater
Yep.
this year, and but it's such a healthy thing for our community and our businesses. I mean, how many good success stories did we hear about businesses running out of food, and
Like
I mean,
thriving,
it's, right. Well, geez, we never want to run out of food, but what a great problem to have,
Right.
But I think people don't think about how do we move people? How do we get traffic to clear? I mean, you talk about the parade, right? People just need to be patient, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of cars, a lot of people, a lot of kids running around, and so there's a lot of work that goes into this week,
Yep.
right? That's coming up soon.
Yep.
And we're going to be good. We're going to be great. My guys don't get off. We have that's our blackout calendar, right? They know they got to work it, and we're trying to fill shifts and provide that safety piece and that coverage.
Well, and the other area that I work with you on is in age-friendly Princeton, and people probably don't realize that either. And you have been very involved with Princeton, like the Alzheimer's and Dementia committee, in helping people understand, maybe businesses, if you have somebody come in that's suddenly
Absolutely.
confused, or things like that. So the police department is just involved in all aspects of the community, and you guys do a great job at that.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Mary, you're up.
All right, I think that the last couple questions here that are job specific you've covered.
I think so, too.
And other questions. So let's get to the fun ones
Oh,
that
boy.
are
All right.
Todd
Here we
specific.
go.
Here we go. First question, what is something you wish you knew before going into this career?
How long have you been at it, by the way?
I don't know. It seems forever. I started in 1997.
Okay.
So
It's been a
I
while.
got gray hair, right? What something I knew. I would tell you that
Something you wish you knew before.
a lot of report writing.
Yeah.
The paperwork.
Right? Like I didn't when we went to school, we knew there was paperwork.
Yeah.
But there's a lot, and
I bet it's gotten worse over the years.
well, it has, thank goodness for computer technology,
Right.
right? I'm going to probably date myself, but back we were still writing out ICRs and writing reports. We weren't typing and stuff like that. So, it's a lot of paperwork, but if you think about this, the better you are at doing the paperwork, the less problems you have later on. Right?
Exactly.
The unfortunate piece, right, is that we're charging out cases that we might not see for another 7-8 months. So there's a little bit of a backlog, and so we're constantly telling our officers, hey, the better reports, the most detail, and again, right, it's a problem. You never how do you know what's important? Right?
That's
And
right.
So when my officers are writing reports, they're trying to they're trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to have in the report? How do I need to describe this? And that's always a work in progress, right?
You also
So,
think you're not going to forget. But
yeah,
you are going to
100%,
forget.
Yeah,
It doesn't
right.
matter what your age, you're going to forget.
Or like
Yeah.
you said, the small details
Yeah.
that might be the clue. Or
Yeah.
the key to
Whatever
something.
it is. Yeah.
Right, we're hoping we identify that. That's why, we have body cameras. When we went to body cameras for the department a few years ago, it was, obviously it's a lot of work to create technology, and I love it.
Yeah.
And I know my officers do, because it allows them to reference in reports, see
Right.
body camera for further details,
Yep.
or just to look at the body camera footage and go, oh yeah, that's what that was done, or that was. It just
That's
helps.
so
Right?
It
It helps
yeah.
the community and the officers. So
Yeah.
Back in 1997, did you ever think you'd have body cameras?
no.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? I think back when we were in '97, it was just starting to, like, the squad camera piece was just kind of starting to be more common in squads.
Right, just the
And-
squad
and I-
camera,
and I
like the
remem-
dash cam.
I wish I would have saved with the department that I started for, a small little department out west. It was like a big camera. Like, it wasn't like something like super
little
small.
box.
Like, I wish I would have saved it, because we would have put it in this case. It was just, I can think back to the, like the bag phones.
Oh, yeah.
Like where
Yep.
it was, in a zipped out bag, and you had, so there were, like, the technology there compared to what now is, you never would have thought.
Well,
of
there
that
wasn't
stuff.
even email or.
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
In high school, when we were, videoing all the fun we were having, especially our senior year at Jody State, she literally had a huge camera on her shoulder, and that's
Yep.
a big, like,
And you had this, remember you had to have like a battery pack attached to your belt. That was probably a car battery leaking, car battery fluid all over the place.
Exactly.
I'll never forget.
oh my gosh.
At when I was playing high school hockey, they had a camera, like a school camera, that they would do like interviews for the hockey players. And they would, you'd come out of the locker room, and then there were kids that would do interviews. Like, there was a class they had. And I'll never forget, they had the same thing, like this gigantic camera on their shoulder. But they would pull a red wagon around with them that had the batteries in the wagon. Because it was too heavy. And I think, I'm like, oh my goodness. And I've told my girls this story, and they're like, what?
to think that we have this now.
I know.
I mean, it's really crazy.
Yeah. And it lasts a day, or
Yeah.
more than a day,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, and it lasts more than a day. Okay, so the next two questions I'm going to kind of combine.
Okay.
So the first one is, what has been the most fun or exciting thing you've been able to do because of your job? And the other is, what's your favorite part of the job? I think they're wondering what kind of perks you get.
Wow. Well, I think when I started, like, I'm not going to lie to you, how cool is it to drive a police car and turn the lights on and all that, right? That was, now for me, like, I mean, this sounds super corny, but like, I enjoy getting out and wandering around a little. My family always laughs at me, but talking to people and
Yep.
being able to walk down Rum River Drive and pop my head into businesses and a lot of just creating those relationships. Sometimes people that I may not remember their name, but I'm like, I talked to you before, and we have this wonderful conversation. So, like, those are the things that I, like, right now as a chief,
Yeah.
I'm excited for. Other things that have come in, right? Hiring new officers that are 21 years old,
Oh, my
and
gosh.
trying to, and them grasping technology way faster than some of us that have been around forever. So, I mean, the job is still exciting to me. When it doesn't become exciting is the day I retire, and,
Yeah.
but I still love getting out, and I still love, we talked about working with like the senior citizens and stuff like that. Like I enjoy going to those meetings because I think it reassures people that, hey, we're here,
Yeah.
those kind of things. But, I'm sure if you're a young officer, you're looking for the good calls. You're looking for
yeah.
all that stuff. I mean, I
The
always
excitement.
well, and I always tell people, like, I can tell you right now, I don't think any officer ever wakes up and goes, oh, I really hope I get in a fight.
Right.
Or I really hope that I get to draw my weapon. I mean, I can tell you right now, if we have those people, they shouldn't be cops.
Right.
They need to go work someplace else,
Yep.
right? I think where you're getting that excitement is the responding to the medicals. And, like, I mean, I've had, one of my most fondest was, we had a CPR where we had a person not breathing, no pulse. We did CPR for 15, 20 minutes.
Wow.
And that person today is still walking around. And so those are those exciting moments. Like, you feel like, God, I did something really good today.
Yeah, helping people.
Right? Or it's, the other day we had a small little kid that had gotten the latch open on a door and walked out and was walking around in a pair of diapers, and mom was on a work meeting and she's, she didn't realize this had happened. And, it was, the call comes in and, there was a few of us on, everybody drops everything.
Yeah.
Because, like, okay, you got to get up there before that child walks onto Rum River Drive
Right.
or wherever they're at.
Right.
And, it took us a good half an hour to reunite the child with the right home,
Right.
But those are the rewarding things that I know, like, my guys, when they go home at the end of the day, they're like, okay, something good happened today,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Does the bad stuff come with the job? Yeah, that's part of the job, right? We're going to have people yell at us and we're going to have all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, if we can know that we tried our best, that's all we can do.
Yep.
right?
And
Absolutely.
there must be some hysterical stuff that happens too. I mean, now that Grandma's gone, we can talk about it, but we won't tell the exact story. But she's had officers at her house before, unexpected, because she accidentally, hit her button.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Right. I mean, we've the calls of, I think when we were in this big, huge protect and serve, right? We'd have some really cute service type calls, where, maybe the 75, 80-year-old person is like, I can't get the can up
Yeah.
from the top. And, we get there, and I have to remind the guys that that's everybody's perception.
Yeah.
Right? And so, and it's funny because we have people that will call us and they'll ask, when you have time,
Right.
can one of your officers stop by because I really need help with this? Now, I would tell you that we're going to do this every time. Now, it's funny because now my officers, like, you have the go-to people. Well, I made you some cookies.
Oh,
Right. So
yeah.
so like you have my officers coming out of those calls with like homemade chocolate chip cookies. And
Yeah.
so I'm assuming they're hoping those calls come in, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
That's awesome.
That's the fun part about
Yeah,
the job.
for sure.
All right, next question is, if you weren't in the career that you're in right now, what would you be doing?
I don't know.
I think you'd be a chamber director.
A chamber director. I love coaching, right? If you could tell me if I could have taken a pathway to coaching hockey, and getting paid for it, it would be a hard thing to turn down.
Yeah.
I'd love to do that. Like, my girls always tell me, when you retire, Dad, I think you're just going to probably work at the hockey rink and drive the Zamboni. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I very well could be, because I love watching hockey. I still will go and pick up a game here or there, where I have no idea who the kids are, but it's just fun to watch hockey. So, ideal job. I mean, like my family always says, oh, you can talk to anybody. So maybe you'd be a salesman or something like that.
Oh,
But,
totally, you could.
Probably, who knows.
Yeah, you
So.
could probably talk anybody into buying a car
Yeah.
or a boat or
Uh-huh.
whatever.
Yeah.
So what's the funniest thing a kid has ever said to you while in uniform?
I think for me, the one that, like, when I was the school resource officer, we'd have the chance to go to, like, the primary or the intermediate school and talk to the little kids. And, you always get those questions like, can we see your gun? And can we, like, all those kinds of things.
It's not just kids.
It's not just
Right,
me.
right, yeah, right. And the probably the best one I ever had was, I had a little kid that said to me, can I get a ride in your police car? Mm-hmm. And this kid probably was maybe 5 or 6 years old, not very old. And I'm like, you know what? Yes, let's go do that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go do it. So we walked out, and his mom was there, and so she sat and waited for us, and we did a couple tours around the block, and we were driving around, and he is asking the best questions about, what does this button do? Like, he's just fascinated with this whole thing. And we get out of the car, and he's super excited to his mom, and he looks at me and he goes, could I have the keys to show my mom how to drive the car? And she laughed.
'Cause obviously he can do it now.
And she said, like, they lived in a farm and he was with tractors and all, like, that was just a fascination. And so I thought to myself, like, okay, that's a pretty good 6-year-old to
That's
just
awesome.
ask me for the keys to the squad car, and say, here, can I have it? So I mean, those are kind of the funny moments that we've had, whatever, or can you put handcuffs on me, or like stuff like little kids, like that kind of stuff. Right?
I have not asked that question.
Can you fake arrest me? Can you take
fake
me to
arrest
jail?
me? Yeah.
Oh,
So,
funny.
I love it. All right, this is a good one.
This is a good one.
What would your walk-up music be if you entered a room as a pro wrestler?
And in this corner.
I would tell you that probably when I was coaching high school hockey, one of my favorite warm-up songs for the guys, and they got tired of it, but I insisted that if I was going to get anything, I was going to get this one song. I love Black Betty.
Okay.
Right? Good song.
Yeah.
You have to listen to it. And what's funny about it is, if you ask my kids what would Dad's favorite, they're going to say that, because I think whenever this song choice question comes up, that's my go-to, right?
Oh my gosh.
We'll get that on your intro.
That. And then of course,
For the podcast.
if I'm still in the cop world and I somehow turn into a pro wrestler, I mean, Bad Boys, is
Well,
gonna
yeah.
have to play, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be another song. But Black Betty is like we talk about Black Betty, or we played, what do we always play? Welcome to the Jungle.
Yeah.
Right, some old good song. I mean, I think some of the kids still, like, I know the hockey team still plays a couple of those songs right now.
Jake, his guess to that was Enter Sandman.
Enter Sandman.
I don't know why. He's just like, Enter Sandman.
Maybe he might know me better. Yeah, maybe
He knows you better than you know yourself.
Yeah,
He might. Yep.
All right, our final question. Let's settle the stereotype once and for all. What's your favorite go-to donut or coffee order?
Well, coffee is simply a mocha. I get a mocha with a shot of amaretto if I go to the coffee corner.
Hot or iced?
Amaretto, weird.
Weird, right?
Hot.
Or I get just you gotta go coffee corner. You gotta go Caribou, right? I get a mocha at Caribou for a coffee hot. My donut, I'm going to tell you, we're kind of a bagel department, but I would tell you my weakness would be like I'm curious to know what Jake told you. I like just your plain chocolate donut, but like
the cake donut with chocolate frosting.
Just like super simple. I'm not a big tons of cream and stuff like that. Yeah, no, I just super simple.
That's exactly what he said.
Did he?
He said cake donut, but then coffee, he said Americana.
Oh yeah, I do that. Yeah,
Wow, that's pretty strong.
He's like Americana and cake donut.
Well, I guess if Jake's listening, he can be dropping that off at the police department.
Yeah.
Since he knows me. But yeah, and is are donuts still in play at the? Of course they are. I mean, we're just not going to tell anybody that, right?
So anybody can bring donuts?
People drop off donuts all the time, and they're usually gone by the next morning. So I mean, it's a weakness, right? So
That is such a funny stereotype, isn't
It
it?
is. Every time you see a cop car at any gas station. Oh,
Yeah. Oh, there must be something
getting
for donuts.
well, it's funny. We were on vacation in Florida, and right across from the hotel we were at is the donut shop, Dunkin' Donuts. And one day we were walking out of the hotel, and we were going to go to Dunkin' Donuts, and there was like 5 squads backed into the parking spots at Dunkin' Donuts, and one of my daughters goes, "Well, look at this," and
Well,
I'm guessing it was Julia.
yes, we're walking across the street, and all of a sudden, Dad, you should pose with these pictures.
Yeah.
And I said, but when you do that, they come running out because they think you're messing with their car.
Yeah.
So we took a picture of the squad cars all lined up, and there was like 3 different departments or whatever, and we walk in, and these guys are all sitting there, and one of my daughters goes over and tells them, thank you for what what you do and that kind of thing, and they're having a conversation about the fact that they have to bring donuts back to the office because the rest of the people that couldn't get there are going to be mad, so they were having to figure out what they were going to order.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Especially Dunkin'. I mean, come on.
So it's
happens,
true.
right? I mean, even though they're going to tell you, any cops can tell you, I'm only at Dunkin' Donuts for coffee.
Right.
Right? That's the go-to answer. So, yeah.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you, Todd. This was really fun. And thank you to everybody who submitted questions, too. They were great questions that were
Yes.
submitted.
Questions,
I
Yeah,
learned a
really
lot,
good. Yeah, it was really fun. So, and I'm sure we'll have you back again.
Perfect. Thank
Yep.
you, guys.
So until next time, this is Kim and Mary signing off. This is Princeton. Stay here.
Play here.